Sure.
Hello, everybody. We are the Savvy Life ahead of the schedule because we're doing a little pre-show to get people a chance to actually log in and see the beginning, and we're trying something different.
Yeah.
So if you're jumping in right now, don't panic. You still have 5 minutes before the real Savvy Life video starts, and this is just we can't afford an opening act, so we're
So we are the opening act, right? We should change clothes, actually.
No.
That's
too much. I only have one next year. Yeah.
All right. So as one of the things we were going to chat about is my weekend project.
Yes, very ambitious project. Yep.
Yeah.
In case you haven't gathered yet from Melissa's talking and posts and everything else, she is very much an urban farmer and has done some really amazing stuff with gardening and things like that.
Thank you.
It's really cool. So, what are you doing now?
Well, just to qualify, there were some starving years there regarding our urban homestead, like, the bees that flew away, the critters that kept taking our pumpkins. So we actually, this project that we did this weekend was more landscape oriented. I took a fantastic class that our county put on, the water district for our county, on water tolerant design for landscape, right? Because we live in California, and even though we're not in a drought right now, we will be.
Yes.
That being said, one of the things that they talked about was getting wood chips, right? So you've got your little plants and everything, but everything else being covered with wood chips. But that can be very cost prohibitive.
If you go to the home improvement center and buy the bags of them, that can add up very quickly, because those bags really don't cover that much.
They don't. And one of the things that this woman said, a fantastic presenter, she said you do 5 layers of newspaper and then 4 inches of wood chips, and that helps prevent the weeds coming up.
Yeah.
So that's great, but to find a source for those wood chips, and one of the brilliant suggestions she made was to contact your local arborist, because they actually have to pay, and I found out they have to pay in our area $250 for every trailer full of wood chips. So every day, sometimes twice a day, they're having to pay $250 to dump the wood chips, right? Even though all that's being recycled.
These are from trees, like when the city says that we need to trim trees, or you have a tree on your property that you need either trim or remove. Arborists come and do that work, and they have those big, gigantic grinding machines that turn them all into sawdust, or wood chips.
Or wood chips, yeah. So anyway, I searched around and I found a resource called chipdrop.com, CHIP, drop.com, and for free they connect you with an arborist, and sometime within the next week or so, at zero charge to you, they will drop off 20 cubic yards of wood chips.
That's a very big pile, by the way.
Did you see the rest of the pile that I haven't finished yet?
That's all.
Front yard.
I tried to park there and I couldn't. Yes.
Lucky that our neighbors really like us. So that's what we did all weekend, and it looks lovely. And so I think that's one of the savviest things that I've done in a very long time, was, first of all, to take that class in the first place, which I thoroughly enjoyed. But then to search around, versus I probably saved myself, if I hazard to guess, somewhere between $500 and $800.
I would say that's probably right.
Right. And instead I can buy more plants.
Yeah. And the other thing is, you didn't have to transport 20 or 40 bags of wood chips in your little tiny econo cars. Right.
Or pay for delivery, or I've rented one of those big trucks. This is like one of the most empowering things I've ever done in my life. Just kind of bounce it down the road in it, and that was fun, the experience in itself. But I didn't have to do any of that. It got dropped right to me. So check it out, chipdrop.com. If you're watching us on YouTube right now, I'll put a link to that particular company in that particular website in the notes.
And before we get started, it's just about time for us to get started on the real topic, the 80-20 rule for saving money habits. Before we get started, though, this is really worth expanding to. Whenever you need something, take 5 or 10 minutes and go see if there's any way you can get it for free before you go spend money on it. There are a huge amount of resources out there. Google and the internet makes it so easy to find those things, and that was real perceptive of you to go look for that in the first place. And there are a lot of things out there where if you whatever you need, take a few minutes, look to see if somebody is offering it for free before you go through the hassle of buying it.
As much as I'd like to take credit, it was suggested, but I took and run with it, so I'll take credit. And actually, I think if there's time, there's a lot of thought process around that, It's not about being cheap.
No.
It's not at all. In this particular case, it's about being environmentally responsible.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a rabbit hole. Maybe if we have time, we'll go into after the actual topic, which is the 80-20 rule for savvy money. So my name is Melissa Tosetti. I am the founder of The Savvy Life, and this is...
I'm Kevin Gibbons. I'm a vice president in Savvy Life.
And we are both cash flow planners. And if this is the first time that you are joining us, a couple different things. What is a cash flow planner? What we do is we work with clients that come to us directly through our website, thesavvylife.com, or are referred to us by financial advisors, and we help them to create spending plans. Mm-hmm. And it's a plan for where you want your money to go over the course of the next 6 to 12 months based on your goals and based on the life that you want to live. So that's what we do. And because of our work with clients, we really look at money from a lifestyle perspective and have thousands of topics that we can talk about that are related to money, because money affects everything, quite simply. And so this particular show really is about all the different little, speaking of rabbit holes, that are associated with this idea of being purposeful with money. Yep. One more thing real quick. The way this works is if you are joining us live, you can watch us just simply by clicking on the link that you're watching us from right now. Thank you very much. Or if you would like, you can very quickly, and it's free, register with Caffeine TV. And that will allow you to actually interact with us. You can type in questions, you can respond. And we love that because that gives us the chance to interact with you, hear what your questions are, and go from there. Yep. Or you're welcome to just keep watching us.
Yep. You can be stealthy and just be. We won't hold it against you.
No. So this is a topic actually that you were excited about talking about, and I'm excited about listening to you talk about it.
Oh boy. So I was working with one of our clients, and one of the things that really became apparent to me as we were talking was that she was feeling somewhat overwhelmed about the whole process of tracking your spending, identifying where her money was going, identifying where she wanted her money to go, and then seeing how well she was managing to her plan. We'd gone through it. We'd identified what her past was. We'd identified where she wanted to spend money. We came up with a good plan. And so we were at the stage of following up. Okay, you've been doing this for about a month. How are things working? And she was feeling very anxious that she didn't have a good handle on tracking her day-to-day expenses and having them rationalize to the plan. For lack of better words, she was having trouble balancing her checkbook. Okay, that's a little bit of oversimplification, but that's kind of the basic idea. And I said something to her a little bit off the cuff, and it really struck her. I could really see that resonated with her. And I said, don't worry about being perfect. And she breathed a huge sigh of relief, and it was really an impactful point. And it made me realize that that's something that we need to really emphasize with the clients and with you out there in the audience. When you're doing things like this, when you're trying to set up a way to set up a spending plan, track your spending, manage your life to your plan, you're not a controller at a multi-million-dollar company with the SEC and the IRS and everybody else looking over your shoulder ready to send you to jail if you're off by 2 cents. You're an independent person. You can be close. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to manage everything, track everything, and get it all right from the get-go. Obviously, the closer you get and the better you get to rationalize and all that, the more confident you'll feel in your numbers. But when you're starting, if you get 80% of it right, you're there. Don't worry about the rest right at the get-go. So it's just a matter of don't strive for perfection right out of the gate and let that paralyze you. And I'm trying to remember. Oh, I know who said it. Brendan Bouchard said it. Brendan Bouchard is a
thought leader.
He's a thought leader. That's what he's.
We love Brendan.
Yeah. He said that something to the effect that perfectionism is not a noble idea. Perfectionism really is a crutch for not doing things. And I'm horribly paraphrasing, but the idea is that whenever he hears somebody say, "Oh, I'm a perfectionist, and that's why I haven't done this because it's not perfect yet," he calls him on it and says, no, you're just, avoiding the issue. Quit trying to be a perfectionist. Get out there with what you have, use it, and make it better. And that, coupled with the response that I got from our client, really encouraged me to follow that same mentality with spending plans and cash flow plans. Is don't worry about perfection. Get something out there, start using it, and improve it. And you have to do all that. You have to start using it, and you have to improve it. You can't just stop and say it's good enough unless you're actually happy with that point. But the whole idea is don't get paralyzed by seeking for perfection. Get out there and use this thing. Get it close. It'll start giving you valuable data. Look at where your shortcomings are, and then one by one address them in a methodical fashion so that you're not overwhelmed by it.
I have 10 different thoughts that are vying to be first
I can
on
see
this.
you. I can see you vibrating, and that's yeah.
So my first thought actually goes back to what we were talking about with this weekend. I had a project. If you're just joining us, this weekend I had 20 cubic yards of wood chips delivered to my house, and I spent the entire weekend shoveling wood chips with my son helping me and my husband jumping in there as well. That dominated my weekend, and because that dominated my weekend, it was a bit of a domino effect, and things that I had normally do on the weekend didn't get done. So when we broadcast this actually from my home office here, when Kevin and I were speaking earlier this morning and he was on his way over, I said, my house is a disaster and I'm not even going to try before you get here to try to fix it. Or to try to clean it like it normally is. And I always say, and if you go back to many of the articles that I write or many of these presentations that I give, I always say if I hit it 80% of the time, I feel like I'm winning, because otherwise you're not striving for anything. And so guess what? The house is going to be clean next week, and all will be well. But right now I just have to tolerate it, and I'm just a little twitchy regarding it. But it's it's livable. Protective Services isn't coming in to take my son.
There aren't any non-pet critters running around.
Right. Right. So there is that, and there's also, this goes to, I've worked with a lot of personalities that they're perfectionists by nature. Some of it their careers have actually amplified it. So a lot of engineers. When we have meetings, an initial meeting with the clients, that's one of the first things that we're trying to figure out in that introductory meeting is how do we communicate with them? How do we get them comfortable with us, first of all, right? It's your money, it's not ours. We're just there to help you to organize it. But I can get probably within the first 10 minutes, if this is a client that I need to say, hey, we're going to send you this worksheet. We need you to fill it out. To the best of your ability, if you spend more than an hour on it, it's too much time.
Yeah.
It should take you 20 minutes to 30 minutes max. Sometimes some clients it takes them 10 minutes, doom, and they're done. Yeah. It's our job in the meetings to ask questions to flesh that information out, because I have had clients that have spent hours and hours and hours trying to fill that out, but it wasn't the right information. It was too deep. If that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a point of diminishing returns.
Yes.
Again, the level of information that we need is can be accomplished in an hour. You don't need to. If you're spending 10 hours on it, then you're wasting your time. Really. Yeah.
I would say that with so many things, everything from housekeeping to something like this. And I think that one of the reasons people get so frustrated with creating budgets is because, first of all, they think of them as static documents, right? Oh, I've created my budget and this is how it's going to have to be. This is what my year is going to look like. And then the dog has to go to the vet that you weren't anticipating, or something happens. And part of that also is, this is a bit of a rabbit hole, part of that is, well, some of that stuff should come out of your emergency fund. It's the way that you're thinking about it, and that's again what we train clients to do. But some of it is realizing that, hey, this is a good thing. You got a raise and you've got more money to manage now. Go back in and let's rework it. So I think that part of that is that they think that they're just done, when again, you're 80% of the way done.
And I think that people have a concept, especially when it comes to finances, that they have to get it exactly right, because if you're off and you overdraw your bank account, you get hit with service charges, or you lose track of things. And so I'm not saying that there aren't cases where you really need to know how much money you have and all, but I am saying that especially when you're starting something new, don't expect to have it 100% right at the get-go. Nobody does that, all right? Nobody picks up a new hobby. Nobody learns how to, a friend of mine's learning how to play the banjo. She's not going to pick up the banjo and suddenly be, Earl Scruggs or Steve Martin. She's going to struggle, and then eventually she'll probably get better at it. It's the same thing with this here. You're going to get started, get close enough to where you're getting some amount of valuable information out now, and then we'll just keep working to improve it.
Goes along the lines of how very often when we're talking with clients, we talk about how this all happens in layers.
Yeah.
You chip away at it. So if you're striving for perfection the first time out, it's
you're frustrated.
Yeah, that your probability for success is very, very low. A couple of the other thoughts that were vying in my mind is there's a saying in the success industry it's ready, fire, aim, and it's that idea of you get ready to a certain degree, you pull the trigger, and based on where that first bullet goes, that gives you an idea of how to change your trajectory. And I've always loved that because, again, a lot of folks that want to start a business, write the book, whatever it might be, and we're waiting for that perfect time. They say this a lot with having kids. There's never a perfect time. So you just gotta do it.
From a technical standpoint, I really twitch when I hear that expression, because in a technical world, ready, fire, aim means somebody screwed up. Mm-hmm. All right. But your idea.
You're blowing our buzz.
But
pull that back.
But it's a different application.
Okay.
That's what I was going to say. Your idea is still sound. What I do, the way that I phrase that, and it's something that used to frustrate a lot of people, is I would tell people that I navigate by the method of successive approximation. And what that means is that I don't worry too much about, if I'm going someplace, I don't worry about getting right to the address the first time. I head over there, and if I'm in the neighborhood, all right, well, maybe I take like 3 turns to find the right street, and I get kind of close, and then, all right, I correct, and I get a little bit closer, and I correct, and I get a little bit closer, and that's how I find where I'm going. And so, because it's easy, and it may take a little bit longer the first time, but it's a lot less stressful than, like, I need to make sure I'm going right exactly where I'm going. Now, this was before the days of Google Maps and GPS and everything.
Google mapping.
Yeah. But when you're having to use a regular paper map and you don't want to have your eyes glued to the map while you're driving, you get close to the area, you pull over and say, all right, I'm within about 3 miles. How do I get within half a mile? If I go this way, I'll go within half a mile. Stop. All right, well, now I may have to circle around a little bit, but I should be within about a block. And now if I look at the map, and I can kind of remember how to get to go there. So it really has to do with the fact of I have a really crappy memory now, and I can't remember 25 directions. So I say, all right, what are my next 3 directions? Get close, stop. What are my next 3 directions? Get close, stop. And that's a large way that I navigate. So that kind of goes back to your idea of the same thing. Get to a certain point where you can get ready, do the action, correct, and keep doing it over and over again. So that is a very sound policy. Yeah, it's just that one terminology.
No, I appreciate that, and I also appreciate though that you explaining that, because you have a scientific mind. You and I look at things very differently, and that's one of the reasons why we're business partners and we're such good friends, is because we meet in the middle.
Yeah.
But it's your way, and it's just the verbalization.
It's just a verbalization. The main thing I was stressing is that if there are any technical or like project management people out there, and they hear the phrase "ready, fire, aim," they're gonna no, that's bad.
No. I can really appreciate that, and actually, that's good to know.
Yeah, you don't want to be careful who you use that with. Or explain very carefully. But Okay. The concept that, as you understand it, is exactly the right way to go do things. Yeah.
Okay. So go out and hit your 80%. If you hit 100%, you've got to celebrate.
Yeah.
But if you can hit 80% of the time, or 80% of the time, you're winning.
Yeah. Just get out there and start doing things, and don't worry about it. Along a similar line, this is something that we have advised to numerous clients. If they have a lot of items that they're spending money on, we'll say, you know what, don't track all your spending. Pick the big things that you want to affect and influence. Track those, And for right now, ignore the rest. And so it kind of goes back to the same thing. It's pick the 5 biggest drivers to your budget. And if you're spending $10 a month on something, or if you're spending $20 a month on something, until you understand where the $100 and $500 are going, don't worry too much about the $10. All right, get to them eventually, but tackle the big ticket items, and you can focus on those, and you're not distracted and overwhelmed.
Along the same lines, we have clients who they get exasperated around their spending around Amazon Prime, Costco, Target, because they can get so many varieties, so many different categories of make so many categories of purchases there. And in those cases, we just suggest we'll have a Target category or have a Costco category. And the reason is because for the most part, again, 80-20, the spending is going to be about the same. And so you just, as a whole, if you want to streamline in that area, as a whole, you're looking at your spending on all things there versus, okay, for clothes at Target, how much am I spending, and trying to
household items, how much am I spending?
Highlight your receipt. Nobody has time to do that.
You don't need to do that.
Yeah.
It's some people get off on that and they really like knowing where every last dime is. More power to you.
Yeah, more power to you.
But you don't need to do that. Yeah.
So I think we're good on this one.
Okay.
On this topic.
Cool.
Can we circle back on the topic that you brought it up, which was at the beginning of this is your, so we started this session about 5 minutes early to give people a chance to log in. So we did a pre-show and we talked about how I managed to get 20 cubic yards of wood chips free for my landscape project that I shoveled all weekend. The company that I bought those wood chips, just to so I don't tease you if you're brand new to or didn't hear the pre-show, it's a company called chipdrop.com. And they'll connect you with an arborist. An arborist will drop off the wood chips for you.
Is that nationwide
again,
company?
Free of charge. I know it's at least California.
Okay.
I do need to know. I do need to find out if it is nationwide, but I think it is.
Okay.
That being said, you had the idea that if we have time, and we do, we have 13 minutes to talk about how, before you go out and jump in and pull the trigger on, spending money on something, look to see if there's another option, a free option or a borrowing or anything like that. And I think that is one of the keystone habits to savvy living. And one of the things I wanted to really emphasize on that is that is not about being cheap. That is about being smart, right? If you don't need to spend the money, think about what else you could spend that money on. But in a lot of cases, it's environmentally responsible.
Yeah, what you're looking for may very well be somebody else's waste.
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with it. Like the wood chips that Melissa got, they were virgin wood chips. They came from freshly cut trees. And it's just that the arborist had no use for them, and Melissa did.
And not only does he not have any use for them, or they have to pay $200 in our county $250 for every trailer load that they're dumping. It's a lot of money, and they actually a lot of them pass that cost on to their clients. So I just made that arborist $250 more, and I'm happy to it because they're all entrepreneurs, spreading the love, and I needed the wood chips.
And so it really is just a matter of looking to see if you need things, especially if you need things that are any type consumable or repurposed, or could be repurposed. It used to be that people would gladly give away or even pay you to take pallet racks away, the wooden packing racks that goods are delivered on. And a lot of people used to use those pallet racks for all kinds of home projects. It was free wood. It's since turned around that people realize that there's money to be made there, and now the recycling of pallet racks has become a very good business. So it's kind of hard to get them for free now anymore. But again, that was an example that did exist, and so if you're looking for something, if you need scrap lumber, there are people that are refinishing houses, tearing things apart that you can, that they don't want to have to haul to the dump. Now, if you're trying to get really good old growth redwood barn lumber, good luck. People have recognized that's a commodity and you'll pay through the nose for it. But if you just need, look, I just need a bunch of 2x4s and I need some scrap plywood because I'm doing something, check around, because you can usually find somebody that's remodeled part of their house and they don't want to have to haul that wood away and pay to get it taken away. So
this concept I actually learned from somebody that I worked with in my BS life, my before savvy life. Her name is Mercy, and she's just super creative, artistic, and clever. And she had just bought a house in the height of the .com boom, so houses were still are. But there wasn't any, she bought the house, so there wasn't any money left to really do anything else. And one of the things that she did is she started paying attention to where homes were being demolished, and would knock on the door or go contact, the guy driving the bulldozer and say, hey, those plants that are those landscaping plants, anybody, if nobody's going to take them, do you mind if I bring a shovel and dig them out?
he's gonna
bulldoze them, and that's how she got all of her, like, if you think about how much plants are, and especially big items, she just drove around and did that. And my mom has done the same thing. My mom, the original savvy woman, she needed this was very recently, she needed a couple of rolls of sod for their lawn. And so they were driving around and found somebody who was laying down sod. And it's really difficult to estimate how much you're going to need.
And you usually buy over, because the last thing you want is to have a bunch of bare spots in your lawn.
Yeah, so she saw somebody who was almost done, asked, hey, are you going to use the last of that? And they said, I don't know yet, but come back in an hour and I'll know. And so she came back in an hour and she had a 6-pack of beer and did the exchange. And it's genius, absolute genius. And then that guy didn't feel like he didn't
didn't really waste it that much.
Yeah.
He got something for it.
Yeah. Hopefully it was beer he liked.
Yeah. So I think that's so it is. So where do these things really come to play? I think it's really opportunistic in anything having to do with landscaping, agriculture. That seems to be a really common type of environment for that type of stuff. Any type of art project, a lot of building type projects. All right.
Thank you, Jana, for letting me borrow your wheelbarrow this weekend. So that's another perfect example. I don't need a wheelbarrow. I just need a wheelbarrow for this particular project. And my friend Jana is very convenient, lives a mile away, and she let me borrow hers. I gave her homemade bread.
So we've talked about that. We talked about that in our book, Living the Savvy Life. We've talked about it in numerous webinars and presentations that we do. The whole idea of the community share of things, of what to do when you need a one-use tool. And one of my favorite examples is a tile saw. At one point or another, almost every homeowner redoes the tiles somewhere in their house, and if they do it themselves, they have to get a tile saw to do that work. They use that tile saw once, and then they never use it again. And so it doesn't make sense to go buy that tile saw. So this is where you need to ask around to your friends and neighbors, do you have these tools? All right, and how can you, if you have a really forward-thinking, creative group of friends like we do, you can actually divvy up those type of tool purchases early in your life, and then it just lasts through. So Melissa's husband, Paul, is an incredible craftsman. He has very artistic, and he has a lot of really great tools. We kind of coordinate a little bit so that if there's an unusual tool, one of us will buy it and we can share it. Because we're so far apart, if it's any type of a usual tool that we're going to use a lot, geographically, we'll both own, like we both have bandsaws because it's just not practical to transport bandsaws. But he has a router. If I need a router, I use his. I don't, I'm not doing that much routing work, so I don't need one yet. Eventually, I might. So understanding who in your social group has those resources and making use of those rather than having to invest when you don't need it is really really smart thinking.
It comes back down to being that word that is so overused, but it's the right word. It's being mindful. We are on autopilot, unfortunately, 80% of the time. And even when we think that we're making conscious decisions, we're making those decisions on autopilot. And so it's, before going on Amazon Prime or walking into a store or whatever that might be, give yourself a couple of steps back and think, is there another way to do this? And there's a book that I have, and I wish I would have pulled it out before we started. It's called What Would a Wise Woman Do? What Would a Wise Woman Do by Laura Steward. And what I love about that book is it's about just asking questions from a different perspective. This one of my biggest takeaways. There's lots of fantastic information in there, and if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll put a link down to Laura's book on there so you can connect to it. But since reading that book, one of the things that I try very hard to do is I'll just ask myself, well, if somebody is successful in this particular area, what would that person do?
Yeah.
Like, how would they look at it? Or my mother, I talk about my mom a lot, right? My mom and my grandmother.
both of them are pretty wise women, so yeah.
I agree.
You could do worse than following their lead, yeah.
But my mom is a natural problem solver. I'm not. That's not my expertise. And so I found in the last probably 15 years or so, one of the things, if I'm struggling with something, I will literally ask myself, what would my mom do? And damn it, if I don't come up with an idea.
Really?
It's hilarious. And all it is just shifting the way that you're looking at it. And I could probably do, a half-hour rabbit hole just on that particular subject. But it's something to think about. Give it a try. The biggest challenge is pulling yourself out and becoming mindful. It's truly like a matrix experience of taking the right pill so you can pull yourself out of the kind of, not rut, but that thought process that you're in on a regular basis.
So this comment is very appropriate as I'm looking at the time, like, and realizing we're almost out of time. And that's that the key is to make sure you have enough time. Because it's when you're under pressure that you're making snap judgments that you can't pull yourself out. Whenever you have a problem, what is it that people always say? Stop. Take a deep breath. Let your mind relax. And so those are all the things that you need to do in order to get to the point you're talking about of what would somebody that I admire and respect do. You really can only do that if you have given yourself enough time to be able to stop and do that. If you're in a position where I need to solve this right now because there's a leaky faucet that's flooding the bathroom, or my son needs to eat right now or he's going to destroy something, you don't have the luxury of pulling back and doing that. So make sure when you're setting all your objectives up, when you're setting your plans, that you have enough time to stop and think.
Can we talk about that in next week's session? Because that's
great. We got to talk about it next week. Stop and think.
That's a huge thing. It's stop and think.
Stop and
think. It goes also back to a new webinar that we're doing on savvy, just savvy time.
Yeah.
Because
the relation between time and money. Yeah.
Exactly. Because we see that being the number one reason why people are struggling. Or struggling in that money's going in so many different directions, they feel like they just can't wrap their arms around it. So that's good.
All right.
See, once again,
we've got our topic then.
Yeah. All right. So if you are, actually, before I say that topic that we're going to discuss, we will be doing that this time next week, which will be June 6th. June 6th. 3 o'clock Pacific time. You can just, again, watch us via streaming, or you can log on and interact with us. If you are watching this, every episode or just about every episode, we record and then upload on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe so you see when we upload new videos. We try to do it every week. You can also check us out on the social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Connect with us on LinkedIn. We would love to be connected with you there. And also check out thesavvylife.com. We've got articles published every single week. And you can check out our list, subscribe to our weekly list, where we send you tips and tricks on how to start a savvy life and maintain a savvy life.
Yeah, and we do not share the email addresses with anybody. So, please do that.
Yep. All right. Until next week. Thank you. See you later.